Howdy, and welcome back to You've Got People Problems, the podcast where we tackle the leadership challenges that no one wants to talk about, but every business faces. I'm your host, Melissa Ortiz with Activate Human Capital Group, and this is episode 23. This week, we're talking about a workforce that often gets overlooked in leadership conversations, the skilled trades. These are the industrial athletes who build our communities, working in extreme heat, freezing cold, high-pressure environments where safety and trust matter more than anything. To explore how to engage and retain these essential team members, I'm joined by Mary Akioka, Director of Human Resources at Concrete Value Corporation, known as CVC, and she's also a family member within the organization. Mary brings a wealth of experience leading both residential and commercial crews, navigating the differences between union and non-union environments, and creating programs that truly meet employees where they are. If you've ever wondered how to keep great people in the trades, or any frontline role, this episode is packed with strategies you can put to work right away. Let's get to it. Howdy, everybody. I am so excited today to welcome Mary Akioka. Please tell me I said that right.
Yes.
With Concrete Value Corporation, more locally known as CVC. And we are talking about how do we engage employees in the trades. I think so often we think of them as mercenaries. You know, if they get $1 more, they're going to go across the street to someone else's company. And so really retention of our expertise in the trades is a really important part of running a professional company. And so I'm so excited to have your input on this topic today, Mary. I've really enjoyed working with you, and I think your take on this is very admirable. I think you put a lot of care and energy into this space. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself and anything you want to make sure people know about you and your organization, and then we can jump into the content.
Perfect. I am Mary Akioka, as previously stated. I'm the Director of Human Resources here at CVC. We are family owned and operated, currently on Gen 2 of our business. We are a concrete subcontractor. We have both a residential division and a commercial division. So a little bit of both sides of the house. So that's a little bit about us and what we do. We've been doing business for 35 years.
And remind me geographically where you focus.
So our main office is in Sacramento, but we have offices as well in Reno, Nevada, and a couple throughout the Central Valley. So we do work in all the way down from the Grapevine all the way up to Reno.
Nice. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Melissa Ortiz, and my focus area for the last 20 years has been on talent optimization. How do we get the right butts in the right seats in the first place? How do we onboard them effectively, make sure they have clear expectations? How do we ensure that they're engaged and giving their all to the organization and their customers? And in the meantime, getting the most in terms of their experience at work. So I love this topic, and I've loved this work for a long time. So these conversations are kind of like sandbox time for me. So I'd love to start this conversation kind of at the 50,000 foot level, Mary. If we think about white collar workers versus blue collar workers, what do you see as the key differences? You've got both in your organization. What are the key differences that we need to keep in mind as leaders?
Of course. So I think when you really look at the difference, right? So we've got, we have an administrative team, and then we have our field employees, and what they want is both the same and different, right? They all care about similar things in some ways, but they're very different in a lot of ways, especially the ways we engage them. So my admin team, I can send an email out and, let them know about an event we're having, something we're doing. Whereas for my other employee base, some of them don't even have emails. They have flip phones for some of them, right? Like it's a very different type of how you reach that person. And so I think that's one of the big pieces when you look at general engagement and what they really care about within a company.
How do we even get the word out to them?
Exactly. Yeah. So because it's great to talk about your programs and different things, but if nobody knows they exist, it's not exactly something that they can do. And so it just depends on the type of worker, but then as to how to reach them. And that's been one of the the big focus is for us is trying to figure out how do you reach every single person all the way down.
Wow. When I think about the clients I serve that have both white collar and blue collar workers, I think so often, especially where we are in Sacramento Valley, about the heat when you and the cold, really, but mostly probably, especially in Reno, the cold. But when we have people who sit in a climate controlled environment, their experience by nature is going to be different. They often have more opportunities to work from home than anybody in the trades who's physically building, repairing, or modifying something. They need to be on site in the elements often, and there aren't as many options for them. And so I just think that that grace and that acknowledgement is an important part of their world, and knowing that they're tougher than the rest of us, quite honestly.
That is wholeheartedly true. So one of my first days with the company, we went out to the field and I tried to do do some concrete work. They put me out on a site, and I've never been humbled faster than trying to hang for about 10 minutes with these guys. And you know, our teams are absolutely incredible, right? You've got the Reno guys who, you know, it's snowing and they're putting blankets out, and the guys here in Sacramento, it's 102. So you're talking about heat illness, safety, preaching on those things. Honestly, the most important thing that we do for our guys in the trade is safety and talking about safety, right? My admin team, I'm putting up posters on how to stretch, you know, in your office chair. Whereas for my guys out in the field, we're talking about signs of heat illness. We're talking about CPR and first aid training. You know, you're taking your OSHA classes. And that's really the most important part when you look at that is above and beyond all is making sure those guys come home safe every single day.
And the difference I see in trades is between paying lip service to all the safety stuff and having leaders who model that and actually care is night and day. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, we're supposed to stretch for 5 minutes in the morning. Now we can have 5 more minutes to get to work. Oh, okay, but turns out we put that process in place for a reason because it actually ensures we have lower incidents of workers' comp. And um,
Yeah. In fact, something we did a few years ago is every single one of our crews is supposed to stretch at the start of their day. And all crews have, you know, we monitor and we make sure that they're doing it. And we've seen drastic decreases in the amount of like soft tissue injuries, strained backs, things like that, and the long-term effects of those, because you want to make sure that they're coming home safe to their families at the end of the day. Because, you know, whether you're white collar or blue collar, that's the number one thing is that family focus. We work to live and to provide for the people we care about. So, and you can't do that if you are, um, if you're not able to work because of an injury. We paired with, it's been about, I think 5 years now, we paired with the American Heart Association, because we have, you know, in the tradesmen, especially, with our particular demographic, you have a lot of diabetes. And so, diabetes, heart issue, heart health, and so we started our industrial athlete program. And so we talked to the guys about the fact that, you know, sure, you know, you're not out there playing soccer every day, but you're moving your body. That's your biggest tool and instrument in your day. Whereas, you know, for my admin team, you know, when we talk about what accommodations we can make, we talk about standing desks or, you know, carpal tunnel, you know, keyboards and things like that. And so it's a different look on longevity.
I have never heard the term industrial athletes, and I just
Isn't
wrote it
it
down. I love
cool?
it so much.
So the American Heart Association's been fabulous. They have actually a group here in Sacramento of contractors, and so they really specifically get together and talk about the issues with trades and health issues. So which has been really neat to see because you go with, okay, what's worked for this group, what's worked with this, because being able to get out to the different organizations, right? When you don't have ways to communicate, how do you get those programs out? So
Yeah.
it's been really fun to partner with somebody who also wants to see the guys be successful in that.
I think that to me, it seems like growing up on a farm, that's something that would really resonate with people, with the employees. Like my husband and I joked about farm fit. Like you don't have to go to the gym when you work on the farm all the time because you're doing farm fit all day. That's your job. And so industrial athletes, I don't know, just really resonates as something like obviously we're tough like that. And they're so much stronger. And that's just what they physically use their bodies at work in a way that so many of us don't. So,
Exactly. And so making sure you're taking care of yourself both mentally and physically. So, because like you said, you're out there in the heat and all the other things, and you're on tight deadlines and you may not have passed inspection, so your day doesn't look how you're supposed to. So it's a big mind shift in your day. And one of the things we always talk with our admin team about is we have them go out and actually see job sites so they can see how difficult the work really is. Because it's one thing to be able to sit there and say, oh, you didn't get me my spreadsheets, you didn't do those things, but when you actually see the hard work that it is to do those things, we work for the field in order to help them get better information. So if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your jobs.
yeah, and it's interesting. I was just talking with a client the other day about an industrial workspace where the controller was putting in these processes for purchase orders, and she had 48 criteria that she wanted answered by anybody putting in a PO. And he was like, "Oh, this may be the most productive way to ask for all this information because these guys are up on a huge piece of equipment 90% of their day. So when they come down and they're sitting at a computer or even just a tablet, having to go through all this minutia may not serve the entire company the way you think it will."
Exactly. So keeping the end in mind is, okay, what do we need to know? Let's start
Yes.
there. And
Yeah.
then once we get that process into place, you can build on top of that and build on top of that until you have this completed process. Because if they're trying to learn 7 different things at a time and do the customers and focus on your job, because you're talking about probably, your supervisor staff filling out that information, and they're dealing with the customer, they've got the employee, they've got, keeping on budget, they've got to learn about the job costing that goes with it. So not only are they just focusing on that one piece, but they're focusing on, like, they are the definition of multitasking.
Yes.
So their
Yeah. And they're
brain
trying to stay
has to
two
work
steps ahead of their
differently.
staff in terms of
Hmm.
material and timing, and they're watching the weather, and it's such a multi-input process.
Exactly. And so to say, oh yeah, I've got these couple things that are great. This is what I need. Okay, well, looking at my all my time today, when would you like me to get this done for you? I got these other things going on, and I know I need to get you this stuff because it's important because it gets me the information that I need. So it's that give and take relationship that I think makes it really special between the two.
Yeah. Interesting. So we talked a little bit before we hopped on to record about the difference between how your residential project teams versus commercial project teams. And when we think about engaging workers in the trades, how do you think about those differently based on the nature of their work?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different because first off, right, we talked a little bit about the fact that when you come on, it's to engage them to begin with. Commercial site, everybody's at least on one site. They might be massive, but they're physically all on one site. So I can say, okay, my whole staff is going to go to this job site and we're going to do a blitz for open enrollment, let's say, right? So I'm going to send my whole staff out there. We're going to educate and do it, and we'll get that done. Or when I go to my residential side, I can't do that because they might hit 3 job sites in a day. If they're a delivery driver, even more. So you've got different engagement there. But then you've also got different things each one finds important where a lot of my commercial side really wants to know about the traditional benefits that we have, right? You look at your vacation time, you look at your or I guess your overall PTO, your incentives, your right, like just a lot of the traditional stuff they want to know about their benefits. My residential side really likes to know a little bit more um, about some of our specialty programs. They're like, okay, they're like, "Ah, I don't get PTO at this level. That's fine. That's whatever. That's not going to sway them to stay or go." But when I talk to them about our Home for Your Family program, which is we'll put they can apply and we'll put money down towards their give the money towards their first home that they purchase.
Wow.
So those are the things they care about because that's huge for their family, right? They're like, and so they have a little bit more of that family focus on impact. And so we figured out that like, okay, for my commercial guys, let's say we're going to send a letter out about open enrollment. So I can send it out to the guys themselves and they usually handle that well. But my residential side, the wife a lot of the time handles a lot of the household pieces. So we
Yes.
figured out if we send it home, they're going to have more responses because the wife's going to digest the information instead of having to send it through the spouse to give to,
That ends
the
up in
head of
his truck
household.
and then gets cleaned out 6 months
Exactly.
later.
So each one's just a little bit different, but at the same time, they all still, care about similar things. It's just a little bit different depending on which side of the house you're looking at, which I always find very interesting.
I love that you have this much nuanced clarity on your different populations, how to serve and support and encourage them, because it's such a retention tactic. And especially when you throw in safety on top of that, that's really the reason I think engagement has been so it's been such a gravitational pull for me for so many years is when we get the right people in the right seats and we engage them. They go home after having done better work, had better interactions with their clients, and then they have more energy for their families and their physical health and their faith and whatever's important to them. If we can create this mutual benefit as employers, we've done something really, really powerful. And it's to me, having the data behind that is just I don't know, really gratifying, I guess, and mutually beneficial.
Yeah,
So
and I think that one of those pieces, right, is how do you find out what people actually care about? Because we have fallen on our face plenty of times trying to figure out what people care about, and only to find out that, oh, they actually don't care about that at all.
do I remember you telling me at some point there was something to do with a boot program?
Oh, yeah.
In your organization?
So we partner with like Boot Barn and Red Wing and just a couple different people, right? And um you're supposed to, everybody needs boots on the sites. And so we partner with them and they get discounts on other items as well. And so part of that that's nice for them is they can do is so at first we didn't really like it. It was just kind of word of mouth. Like everybody just kind of seemed to know about it. And about 2 years ago, we put in an orientation. We're actually educating on it. And that program is taken much more advantage of. Like they can get discounts on like jeans and other things when they purchase it or different items. So that way they're able to actually like get a discount on it, but they and get the boots they need. So, but being able to actually educate people on it, we had a lot of resistance when we first put that orientation in, which sounds crazy in a white collar world. They're like, what do you mean? Like it took a really good chunk of time for management to come around to it because they're like, what do you mean I'm going to pull my workers out of the field for, half a day? I don't understand that because right there's all the different trainings they need to do when they start. How do you get people to know about the programs we have? Like, oh, everybody just knows. Well, I have no idea how everybody just knows, but they do.
Yeah.
So, because on especially on the residential side, and it wasn't really till we brought the commercial side in that we saw that. So on the residential side, in general, it's 90% referral based. Guys come in on the street, hey, my cousin sent me, my friend sent me, my brother sent me, and so everybody word of mouth, right? They tell you about the programs because they've been here for a long time and they just innately know. But when we brought in the commercial side, none of those guys knew. So that's our newer entities. And we're like, oh, that's right. We need to educate on this. And so once we put that
And I
program
assume the
into
half day out
place,
of the field, sorry to interrupt you, but that the half day out of the field, that's not
no.
to educate on the boot program, right? That's to educate on here's all the stuff we offer, here's how we work,
Mhm.
here's our systems, and really just get them acclimated to the operational side. Is that
Well, exactly. So talking about really our company culture and all the things that they can take advantage of, right? So we talk about our mission and values in depth. We go over how all in all, both residential and commercial, that we have offices in Reno and the Central Valley, and that we're actually like a large employer, where a lot of the guys are like, oh, I didn't realize there was anybody outside the Central Valley. I didn't realize there was a whole nother side to the house. And so they get to see that, like, oh, there's other opportunities. Let's say you're part of the our steel erection company and you want to give concrete a try. There's a whole nother avenue for you to be able to move to. Oh, you don't like this part. There's a different thing you can try over here. And so we do career pathing within that. We also cover some of like the basics so we don't have to pull people out, like the harassment trainings and some of those things, which we try and make intriguing, but we all know it's not the most riveting of subjects.
sometimes we
But
just have to get through it.
yeah, exactly. And so we figured out with management what makes that work. We didn't stop and say, okay, you have to do it at 8 a.m. every day. I have my team who is amazing, by the way, which are bilingual. If you have Spanish speaking employees and don't have somebody bilingual at the front, it is a huge game changer. But they come in, depending on the manager, everybody does it a little bit differently, but they come in at 5 a.m. and they have the guys come in early because then they can still go out to the field and make sure they get their full day in hours. Because one of the things that they care about is making sure they make enough money to feed their families. And so if they only came in for a half day and the job site they were going to see was like further out and they only had the afternoon to be there, the foreman's probably not going to need them at that point because the concrete's on the ground. So
Yeah.
by coming in early, they still can get a full day in and it's a win-win for both sides. And that I think is the biggest piece to look at with, white collar and blue collar is how do you work together so it's a win for everybody.
Have a little empathy. One of our core values at Activate is meet them where they are. And that is so beautifully painted towards, okay, here's what they need. They need their HR training at 5 o'clock in the morning. Suit up, friends.
Yeah,
And if you've seen both sides of it, you're like, well, of course they do. That makes total sense. If you're a normal administrative worker, you're going, I'm sorry, what? 5 a.m.? Yeah, this is how we roll. We serve our internal customers the way they serve our external customers. When you get that through everybody's heads, it tends to create a lot less resentment with our tradespeople. Be like, yeah, these people show up for us at 5 o'clock in the morning to make sure we get what we need out of our day. That is a game changer in terms of the respect both directions from what I've seen.
exactly. And we always have coffee too. So
There's that. Okay, take me down the path. So we talked about residential versus commercial and different levels of, I won't say professionalism, just priorities and mindset.
Mhm.
What about this other path around unionized and unionized environments?
Yeah.
What are some of the nuances between those, especially when we think about creating an engaging environment for both?
Yeah, of course. So we're a non-union contractor. But right, we lose employees to the union all the time. Which again, everybody chooses what path is best for them. But it depends on what fits, right? Is a lot of people love the union work because it's consistent, they've got that, and that's a different level of consistency where we've got people with us where if you come on our side, they care about different things because you get different packages, right? With a union, you've got really structured packages that come with that, and you've got your pensions and things like that. Where with the non-union, we can provide different packages that might be focused on different people, such as that Home for Your Family program, or looking at certain. We can be more individualistic, which is really good for some people. If you've got, let's say you want to go on a longer vacation, that's something we can work out with you and look at to see if that's something that benefits. Is somebody able to cover where, the just the different sides need different things, right? You might go to the union. We've had people who've left us to go to the union for more money because, yeah, a union has better wages than we do. But they may come back because we have more steady hours for them, where we're able to put in some different seniorities or things like that. And so I think it just depends on, with engagement, what a personal preference is. So, because I think each side's just a little bit different in the package they provide. And I think that's really cool that people have that option. So, you don't want somebody to stay with you who would do better over here. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people get wrong about human resources in general, or management or companies, is that they're like, oh, if they leave me, they're going to be so upset. It's like, they will, but honestly, most people will be happy for you because you've chosen something that fits you better.
It's right for you and your family. No one's going to begrudge you. And the other thing I see that's really interesting when we think about union versus non-union, and I see it in education, I see it in different environments, is in non-unionized environment, usually the pace and the intensity and the quality expectations are higher in a non-unionized environment. Whereas in a union environment, there are more people who feel they have the freedom to skate. And so when you have an A player, they don't want to be surrounded by C players. They want people who are held to the same standard, who keep up the pace, and who they want to have the opportunity to be rewarded for being awesome. And we don't have that freedom in a unionized environment. And it's internally frustrating to the employer and our A players. Whereas if you go in the non-unionized environment, we've got a lot more flexibility to meet them where they are, to provide some differentiated benefits, and to incentivize the best possible outcomes for the organization and the team member.
Exactly. And you can really look at what's important to them, right? Like I said, I've never been a union company or anything else, but I know from our standpoint, we believe our employees are one of our largest customers, and we consider them a customer. And I think to be a successful business, that's something really important you need to look at is, are you serving your internal customers to the best of your abilities? They're the people who are out there every single day, especially with the industry, blue collar workers, right? They're out there every single day putting in the work and doing, the manual labor and putting the concrete on the ground in order for me to sit in this chair today. And I'm very grateful for all the people who've been here. And I think part of that, what you were talking about with, being able to really pick out those A players, is you can bring them up. Almost all of our management has come from internal. Very little comes from external. We always look internal first. And I think being able to sit in an interview and I'm like, yeah, my division manager here in Sacramento has been with us since 1998, I think. And he started by being a backhoe operator in the field. So, and now he is running our largest division, and things like that. And I think that being able to show those pieces, it's one thing to say that you care, it's another to show that you care.
And those internal stories go so far. It's like, well, he did it too. And it's not probably so far out of reach for me.
Exactly. So how do you build a place that somebody wants to build a home in? Do you want your business to be a place that people build a home in? For us,
Or is
that's
it just a training grounds? Sometimes I've got clients that they know they're a training grounds for someone else. They know they don't pay industry high averages, but they know they're willing to take young people and train them up. And so what they become is this referral network of, hey, go there. I learned a lot there. I didn't get paid the most money, but man, my career it was a stepping stone and it was a great place to learn. Go do that. And so if we're clear on what our strategy is, that can be effective.
exactly.
The other thing I think is interesting in the unionized versus non-unionized environment, what I've seen is if we're go specifically down my path of an engagement survey, how do we get a feel for whatever path they're on, whether union or not, what employee needs are not being met? And it's interesting when you work with union leaders to say, okay, here's what the intent of the engagement survey. It's not to call out any bosses. It's not to call out any employees. It's to see, okay, are they clear on what they are supposed to do? Do they have the resources they need? Are they feeling appreciated at work? And go down the list of the intent behind the survey items and they go, oh, well, those are really good things for our employees. Yes. That's why we're asking. Oh, we've very rarely ever seen an impediment placed by a union because the intent is pure, it's sincere, and it's intentionally beneficial to the teams and individuals. And so that's never been an issue, obviously, in our non-unionized environment, but I don't know, I guess I would have expected it more of a challenge. And when they get that the intent is wholesome, it's kind of
Well, I think as long as you have leaders instead of managers in the right positions, that makes the biggest deal, right? A leader is somebody who, wants to build people up and teach and be able to say, like a leader doesn't always have to be a manager, right? There's plenty of guys who are leaders who really don't care to be managers, but a manager is somebody who's, look at me and like my important self, and it's self before others, where a leader is others before self, right? If you make a mistake, I know at least with my team, if somebody on my team made a mistake, I'm the one who made the mistake, right? Because I'm responsible for my team. And that's my personal leadership style that I believe in is, that you are one team and one unit and that you care about all the different people that affect that. And so I think it's important to think that way. And I think that's what the surveys kind of hint at and really try and bring down to is how do you best serve the people on your team? You guys helped us with the predictive index on trying to figure out how personality fits. And that was really big because I'm able to go as a leader to this person and say, okay, well, this is probably how I need to broach this subject instead of in this other way, because you're trying to meet people where you are or where they are. And I think that those types of things are just really helpful to be able to mind shift towards that.
It's so interesting. I think about our business as an HR technology company. How do we get good people data into people's hands at moments when they can do something with them, whether it's onboarding and we know the difference between the approach of the manager and the direct report, whether it's we know the demands of this role and who's the most likely to succeed there from an aptitude perspective, whether it's they've been with us for 16 years and we want to make sure we're meeting those needs consistently so they're not distracted by water cooler talk or frustrations and they can just show up and do their work. And it's an interesting space.
It is. Well, sometimes, right? Like somebody might see a problem or something and they don't have the permission. So by getting the data, being able to digest that information, you're able to give the permission to be like, yeah, this is one of the things, one of the biggest mental stresses that we've kind of talked about with Heart Association is like financial stress in especially the trades, right? In general, right? That's one of the biggest financial stresses, or one of the biggest stresses. And so when it came to safety, we made sure to give the guys permission that like, hey, if someone seems like kind of off, tell them to take a few days to, take a day or two, figure out what they need to figure out and then come back. Because if you're over there, your mind's over there, but your body's on this work, you're probably going to get injured because you're not in the right headspace. And so by looking at, the type of survey results you're talking about, seeing what's important to people, what burdens they have, and getting to know people on a more personal level, you're able to help them out in a more personal way. But your company also needs to be able to give permission to do that. So it lets the company know, oh, these are things that they struggle with. we should give our employees permission to be able to do these things and talk about these things. So that data is incredibly important for so many reasons.
And I think the concept of a permission slip, like it takes us all back to grade school and a permission slip to go to the bathroom or whatever, go on a field trip, whatever. But when you have that permission slip in your mind, it's like, I'm right here. I'm looking at this person and they're not okay. And that could jeopardize our staff. That could jeopardize them personally, me, put their family in jeopardy. And to be able to make that call and trust your own judgment is a huge vote of confidence in your leaders. And I love that concept, whether it's any staff member, like, hey, this is your permission slip to tell me when you don't understand something. This is your permission slip to give somebody a couple days off because they clearly need it. And it's just a really good mechanism, I think, to be like, I trust you. Use your good judgment.
Yeah. And, it doesn't take once telling somebody one time. I think it took 2 full years of telling my staff to ask for help, and including me, right? We all usually struggle with that, like, hey, I'm behind, like, can you help? And the first time one of my staff members came to me and said that, I was like, yes, absolutely. Like,
So glad you
let's
asked.
go. It took 2 years to get here, but we're here. So the repetition's important to hear the message.
They don't get it until they're mocking you, right? Until you've said it so many times that they make jokes about it, like, call me if you need me. No, I really mean it.
Yep, exactly.
Finding some little phrase for it that sticks with them, and then it'll come to them and be like, they really do mean it. I need to call for help.
Exactly. So just by saying it once, it's not going to stick, but the more you say it, it becomes a mantra. The things you say and the words you use have real power. And I think that's one of the things that you see with these things, right? Is when you look at how to do your surveys, you really wordsmith and craft them right. Because if you don't, you're not going to get out of it what you need, just like somebody wouldn't hear it the way you meant it. I mean, that's 90% of human resources, right?
Yes.
Is just being a sort of, I guess, communication. What's the word I'm looking for? But translator. So.
And even to that point, if we go down that route, if we're translating into different languages, the importance I've seen, we've translated our core engagement survey, the Employee Commitment Index, into 36 languages and deployed it in 49 countries. And if you get the language just wrong, if you don't get it quite right, it's critical. And so we translate and then we back translate to make sure it comes back to us the way we intended it. And so there's a lot of effort that goes into making sure that those communications are as intended, so they hear what we're really asking. And can be a big deal the further those languages go from English. And it's a critical thing. And us having a good translation partner has been extremely valuable in the survey process, because we want all the communications surrounding it to resonate, to say, look, we're trying to support you. We want you to be brutally honest about where we're at, because we can't improve if you don't give us a gut check and say, okay, here's what's really going on. And sometimes they don't believe you the first go around, but when they realize nobody got fired over it the first time, they start being a lot more candid.
That's probably a great point, but I think that you hit something that's really important with the language piece, right? Is not only is it, we've got on my residential side, like, probably a good 80% would prefer Spanish. They might be bilingual, but that's their preferred language. And so, so we send all our information out in English and Spanish. Well, when we do, I throw it in Google Translate or translation services or whatever, and then I have my team check it, because we don't send it out in formal Spanish because they won't read it as much, or they might have a hard time understanding it.
Because that's not what they
put it in the language that they understand. So you're talking like, more slang terms or localized, right? You might, if you're doing it in Spanish, Spain Spanish and Mexico Spanish are very different Spanishes. And so you've got to look at what type of dialect you're in. And so we always adjust a few words because they don't quite fit. And another importance on having somebody on your team who speaks those languages for an engagement factor is, so we did an acquisition on the commercial side for a company, and They've been around for years. They're amazing. We love them. But they recently hired, when not long before we acquired them, they had brought in somebody who was Spanish speaking to run their front office or, be the face of the company, right? And hire people on and things like that. They instantly were able to grow a headcount of 30 people in the course of a couple months because they had somebody who could assist them and help them, and that friendly face that knew what they were saying, and it wasn't a struggle to be able to bring that in. So to again going, I feel like I'm just repeating your phrase, but meeting people where they are.
Yeah, it is. And it's, the difference between I'm going to go in, no one's going to understand me. We'll have to bring, I mean, probably should bring somebody with me to translate, and maybe it's personal and I don't want to talk about that versus I'm going to go in, I'm going to get what I need. And especially the Mexican culture, they're very authoritarian. They very seldom ask for help. And so there's already an additional barrier just culturally of, I got this, it's fine. I won't ask too many questions, where we want to invite that in. We want to encourage that. And just that friendly face of somebody who can speak my language actually can remove
Yeah.
a lot of barriers.
Well, even when, how frustrated do we get when we call customer service and you have a hard time understanding the person? They're speaking
Yes.
English, but you're having a hard time. I can't imagine
Verizon.
walking around
Verizon.
having someone speak a whole nother language when I'm, just like, I'm lost and I can't figure out where I'm going. Like, it took a lot for me to get the courage to ask you something, and I can't find anybody who speaks my language, so I can't get the question answered.
This was a waste of my time, is how that
Yeah,
feels.
it can be very frustrating.
Yeah.
I should say I can only imagine.
Yeah. So tell me about, I want to go back to kind of 50,000 feet and then we'll kind of
Yeah.
wrap up. Got some notes in terms of tips and tricks. Tell me for CVC, when you think about your talent optimization process, when you think about people getting the right people in the right seats and make sure they're not ill-suited and likely to burn out, to your onboarding process, your ongoing engagement measurements, where do you think you have the most room to grow and what are you the most proud of?
Ooh. Um, there's so many opportunities. At any given point, I've got a list of 50 things going that we could do, different programs we can put in place, right? There's if you say the phrase when I first came on, the phrase that we always use was, well, this is always how it's been done, right? And human resources was a way to process paperwork and get it through. And I had somebody kind of push me and tell me that, but like, well, why do we do it that way? And that expanded my mind to where, well, you start dreaming. And so I'd say one of the proudest things that I have is from, having such an amazing team and group around me who's been able to support us and realize that human resources isn't just paper processing. It's not just pushing through pushing through pay increases and processing vacation, things like that. It's the best way to be able to take care of the people who work hard for you, which I think is just so cool. And so being able to put in those programs and seeing more engagement out of the guys when somebody comes up to me at the end of the year, when I see the picture of the person who's purchased their new home, right? And that we assisted them in getting into, right? Or the person who said that our Save the Waste program helped him put a new roof on his house, or just the pride and the stories that come out of building company culture is 100% what I'm the most proud of. And I think room to grow is still working on trying to get down to that individual employee. How do I get down to the level and find out what the guy who all the way down works in the field, what does he really feel? What's really important to him? How do you keep improving that process and making it better and better over time? So, and that's a piece that I don't think we'll ever fully grasp and get all the way around, but we're going to have a lot of fun trying
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. It's interesting. The value of getting that level. They know you care is the difference between in one environment, they feel like they're trading days for dollars. And in one environment, they're part of the team. They're committed. They're all in. And the difference in per person productivity, the difference in safety that we see in our survey data is extraordinary. And it benefits the entire food chain. And you're certainly leaning in. And I love watching what you're doing and hearing about all the programs that you come up with because they're really inspiring. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I'm going to go through some tips and tricks and that I gathered from our discussion today. And I want you to tell me if I got anything wrong, if I missed anything important. So here we go. My first tip that I recorded during our discussion was think about trade workers as industrial athletes. I'm obsessed with this term and I'm going to start using it because I think it's wonderful. Industrial athletes who want to go home safe and healthy to their families every night. And that's, our why. And if we can align around that, we've got a different discussion we're having with team members. We talked several times about meet them where they are, whether that's in terms of programs, training, timing, communication. Thinking about our employees as our internal customers is critically valuable. And then the third one I put, and you can add anything you want to this, was just giving permission slips. Giving permission slips to someone who you see clearly needs a couple days off, responding when people are off. I guess it really goes back to meet them where they are. But those leaders who are seeing it day to day, who don't need 5 levels of clearance to do what they know they need to do, were what resonated with me. So anything else resonate with you in terms of our conversation?
I think that you kind of nailed it as far as kind of those big takeaways and those points. So I think it all really, like you said, wraps up to meet them where they are, that employees are our absolute most valued asset.
They're tremendous.
Yeah. And I want to say thank you so much, Melissa, for having me on today. It's been a blast. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Well, thanks. You were fantastic. And I appreciate your perspective on this space. I think our trade workers are probably the ones in our economy who value expertise, real hard-earned expertise in a way that many white-collar workers today don't value. I think they can YouTube anything or chat GPT anything and learn anything. Meanwhile, these guys and gals have been out sweating it out and learning the hard way in a way that they respect other people's expertise. And I've always admired that about people who work with their hands and build things and things that are safe for us to utilize in our economy. So, Mary, if someone wants to reach out to you, what is the best way to do so?
I have a LinkedIn, which you can do. You can also call our main office anytime and ask for me. I'm here and I have an amazing staff who answers the phone. So if anybody's interested, let me know. 916-852-6030 is our number. So, but thank you again for having me on. It's been a blast.
Pleasure. And if you want to get hold of me, probably easiest is through our website, activate.hcg, like humancapitalgroup.com. And on LinkedIn, I'm Melissa Ortiz. My maiden name is Yerxa. That's probably the best differentiator between me and the many other blonde Hispanic last named Ortizes. So thanks everybody for listening in. We'll see you on the next episode of You've Got People Problems. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of You've Got People Problems. If you got something out of the conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with the other leaders in your network, because let's face it, we all have people problems. You can watch full episodes on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast app. But either way, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.